how it's made. The first sailboards were built in the 1960s, when for the first time a sail was rigged to a mast and attached to a surfboard. Today's windsurfers can pay thousands for their high-tech gear. For great fun, you just add wind and water. Construction of a sailboard starts with a block of styrofoam. A wooden template is attached by pushing nails through holes in the wood and into the block. Using an electrically heated tool called a hot wire, the block is sliced along the curved line of the template. The result is what's known as the core. Next, to the left, a worker guides a shaper machine which outlines a template called a masterboard. Whilst on the right, a spindle cuts grooves into the core. The grooves are guidelines to carve the core into the shape of the masterboard later on. The shaper's counterweight lets the spindle gently hover above the core as it cuts. Styrofoam dust flies everywhere, so protective masks must be worn. The initial shape of the sailboard is sawn out, and the core is sanded down. "650 grams of epoxy resin is applied onto carbon fabric to reinforce the material and make it sticky. Resin is also applied to a fiberglass fabric. These strong, lightweight materials are part of the board's fabric and foam sandwich construction. They'll harden during curing later on. The workers carefully scrape away about 20% of the resin. Too much, and the board would crack during use. A thicker resin is spread onto a 3mm thick piece of rigid foam. It's placed into the bottom mould and this plastic component is attached. It'll hold the sailboard's fin, which helps the user steer. An ultra-lightweight synthetic fabric called Kevlar is added as the final outer layer on the underneath. After resin is applied to another piece of rigid foam, openings are cut in which components will be fitted later. This layer is placed into the top mould and covered with more carbon fabric. The core is placed into the bottom mould. Two plastic components, the foot strap inserts, are fitted into openings lined with fiberglass fabric. Another plastic component, called a mast track, fits through an opening lined with a stronger carbon fabric. This will anchor a mast measuring up to 6 meters high. Strips of carbon fabric reinforce the areas where the windsurfer will stand. The mould sections are joined and the whole thing is inserted into a plastic sack. The end is taped shut, but 2 smaller holes are left open. Two hoses are attached to collars around the holes. An electric pump then takes about 3 minutes to suck all the air out of the bag. As the air is removed, pressure forces the mould sections even closer together. After curing in an oven at 38 degrees Celsius for 5 hours, the mould sections are separated. Excess hardened fabric and foam along the edge are trimmed away. The paint along the edge is sanded off. A strip of carbon fabric is placed around the edge and secured with plastic wrap. After more curing, the wrapping is removed and the board is sealed for good. Next, the sailboard gets 2 coats of urethane paint. A worker locates the foot strap insert holes and cleans them out with a router. He then cleans the inside of the mast track opening. An enormous vinyl sticker gives the board its personality. Any air bubbles are smoothed away. The sailboard's dimensions and serial number are inscribed, and the board gets a signature. Finally, 2 rubber cushions, called deck pads, are glued on. So now all you have to do is get this board down to the beach.